Hi, I'm Mike Baker. This is National Arts, and we are on Broadway. Footloose is one of Broadway's latest high-energy musical smashes. Based on the well-known 80s film of the same name, Footloose features the popular musical score of Tim Snow with lyrics by Dean Pitchford. Directed by Walter Bobby, the musical is an exuberant celebration of youth and dance, coupled with a poignant resolution of familial loss.
My character in Footloose is the mother. She is the wife of the preacher, who is sort of the spiritual center, moral center, if you will, of the town. He has sort of lost his way. They have lost a son, which has caused the town to go through a series of changes, which includes outlawing anything that's fun, including dancing. And although on the surface that seems like a pretty thin premise, there's a basis in truth and reality for that. My character, who is the mother of the young woman that the boy, the famous in the movie Kevin Bacon character, falls in love with, is a woman of strength and a very centered soul who sees all about her losing theirs, so to speak, and is still hanging on to what she knows to be the truth. And for a while, well, for a couple of years, has waited for everybody else to get it, including her husband, mainly her husband. And at one point she finally has to speak up, and does, and doesn't seem to make a difference, but then in conjunction with a lot of other things that transpire in the course of the play, it does make a difference. And her husband actually apologizes to her. I love that part of the play.
The major difference, obviously, between the film version and the theater version is there are no book burnings. This isn't about the far right. This is about loss and coming to terms with loss. Yes. And it's more powerful this way, I think.
Thank you. It's obvious that you can't do things in the theater that you can do cinematically, and I think the creators were very intelligent about that. You can't have a tractor pull on stage on Broadway. Well, you can if you're Doug Hanning or somebody, but it just isn't feasible. So they found other ways, I think, to incorporate action and tell a story. And it's a town of, I mean, these are very interesting people, and everybody in the town has an opinion, and I think you get to see what everybody's opinion is. No one is slighted necessarily because of their opinion, even the bad boy in it.
When the Reverend loses his son, he loses his way, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He's the one that's supposed to know the path.
That's right.
And yet he's lost it.
That's right. And I can't say that that wouldn't be true of almost any parent today, or any parent in history. To lose a child is just not something you bargain for. You're not supposed to live to bury your children, you know.
But the town loses its path as well.
Yes, it does. It does. They all sort of veer off into a... It's interesting. I read an article in, I think it was USA Today while we were in Washington at the Kennedy Center, about a town in Texas where the senior class had gone on a field trip to Big Bend National Park, and one of the kids, I don't know what he was doing, if he was not doing what he was supposed to do, but was killed, fell off a cliff, something. And so they outlawed all field trips, which included trips like that to a national park, trips to the symphony, to a ball game, the marching band competition. Their prom was banned because it was considered a field trip, because it meant going to an outside of the school. And these kids were signing petitions and marching, and that's why I said before about a thin premise. People go, oh, come on. Well, you know what? It happens, and it is happening now, and it's actually quite topical, especially across middle America, if you will.
Making little sounds other folks ignore, quieting the beat of my heart, never being part of the moment, learning to be silent, learning there are some topics that we don't even mention, and if they come up, then we try to be vague. There are subjects from which we divert all attention, and some we avoid like the plague.
The women in this show are very strong.
They are, isn't that great?
Very strong.
We love that. Moms rule.
But the young women, too.
Yes, yes, they are very strong. It's interesting, isn't it, that it's not really a woman's show, but that it's the guys who are kind of out there.
There are some generational differences in the women. You have learned to be silent. You have that wonderful number where you sing about
Yes, with Catherine Cox, yes.
Ariel's generation is not going to be silent.
No.
She's rebellious.
And I have raised her not to be silent. We have raised her. My husband in the show and I have you know, just giving her a voice. And then when she uses it, he balks. And I'm saying, hey, this is the child we made.
It is a wonderful number for Vi and Ethel, isn't it?
It is. It's great. And it's interesting. Everyone reacts to that. To a person. People respond to that number, just think it's the great. And we, in rehearsal, Catherine and I kind of thought it was, we weren't sure it was going to last. We're going, here's the mother's number, you know. But it lands and it gives a weight to especially to the first act, and to our points of view. You know, it sets her up for the scene she has near the end of the show in the courtroom with her son, to say, go talk to him. Come on, speak up.
In addition to these messages that we have found in the show, it is just a bloody fun show.
Yes, it is. Thank you. All that seriousness aside,
fun.
It's a good time.
It is a good time.
It's some great music and some great dancing, fabulous talent. Some of the young talent is, the old talent isn't too bad either.
No.
But it's really a good time, and people respond to that. They just have a blast.
I've been working so hard, I'm punching my card. 8 hours for what? Oh, tell me what I got.
Ren's kind of he's a bit of a hopeless romantic. He thinks of himself as a pretty funny guy, although I don't really think he is. I think he's got a really good heart, and I think he's just a kid who has been, first of all, thrown a lot of things. His father has walked out on him. He's had to leave his hometown and all of his friends, and he comes into this small town where he quickly discovers that dancing is against the law, which is something that he really enjoys to do. Whether or not he's the best dancer in the world, he just really likes to dance. And so he's had a lot of stuff thrown at him, but I think one of the things that I like most about him is that none of that makes him back down from anything. He is, you know, going to say what he wants to say and going to do what he wants to do, regardless of what people throw at him. So he's the kind of person that I think I would like to meet, I would like to get to know. And he's a bit wacky, too.
He's going through what a lot of young people go through, and that is the desertion of a family member.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the greatest fears of a young person, is that they'll be abandoned.
Yeah, a lot of what this show is about loss, and about how we cope with it and how we deal with it. And I think that he is the kind of kid who really deals with it in a good way. He's not going to let it bring him down, and he's going to, you know, try to be there for his mom and try to be there for, you know, for himself, and just realize that he's got to move on and he's got to, you know, keep going. I think in some ways he discovers by the end of the show how much it actually affected him, or how much it affects him, and at the same time helping the other character, the minister, realize how much the death of his son has affected him.
Almost paradise. We're knocking on heaven's door. Almost paradise. How could we ask for more?
I love the analogy that kids are pumped up with promise and full of rage. There's a dichotomy there. It can go either way. It can be the Ren, it can be the Chuck, in that one phrase.
You know what? And I think that that's what makes this town that Walter has created so realistic, because there aren't a lot of bad kids. You know what I mean? There's just a real fine line between what is okay to do and what is not okay to do, and I think that most kids have both of that. Most kids have both of those things in them, you know. Just full of excitement and full of anger and full of angst and full of all of those things. And I think that we sort of get it across pretty well here, just in the things that end up happening. You look at someone like Chuck, and I don't necessarily think that Chuck's a bad guy, and I don't even know if Ren thinks that Chuck's a bad guy. I just think he just doesn't really get it. You know, he's maybe not the smartest bean in the bunch, but I don't necessarily think he has to be a villain. I think that he's just, I mean, if you look at it from Chuck's side, it kind of sucks. This new kid comes into town. Chuck's pretty much got the town under control. You know, the cop likes him. He's got the minister's daughter. Everyone thinks he's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden, this kid comes in, breaking laws, and they're throwing a ticker tape parade for him. So you can kind of see how Chuck might get a little pissed off about that.
In my car. 8 hours for what? For what? For what? For what? For what? For what?
Been working too damn hard. I'm punching that same
Chuck Cranston, because he was an actor figure in a movie already, is similarly known as the bad guy of the show. I mean, he's the guy who gets in the way of our local hero who arrives from Chicago, you know. But I don't look at him like a bad guy. I look at him like a guy who's given a couple, you know, he's dealt a certain deck in his life. And this town actually likes him for a while, especially all the kids. He's the biggest party in the town. He's got a lot of fun. And all of a sudden, a couple days go by and a couple months go by, he's lost his girlfriend, he's lost his 2 best friends, he's lost whatever sense of community he thought he actually had or probably did live for. And he only knows how to handle that certain ways. And a lot of times that's going to be to talk a little bit louder or to put the pressure on or to say, well, you know, he's not all that. And in some degree, Ren and Chuck are a similar breed, but they're just from a different time. You know what I mean? And Ren's coming from a bigger city that's almost intimidating because what could he know that I don't know? And I really do think he cares for Ariel. You come in the show to learn that he ends up hitting her. And you know, that's a scene that we don't see, which I think creatively I'm thrilled that they made that decision because of our audience. I don't think they need to see that happen. But I also know that it was probably out of fear. It was probably out of a confrontation that he just didn't know how to behave. And whether it was from his own family, all of a sudden he doesn't have it going on, but he used to. So he's not thrilled that there's a school dance. He's not thrilled they're going to practically throw a parade for this kid. And he just ends up kind of taking his cards and walking away, you know. So that's Chuck in a nutshell.
You know, abuse can take many forms. Ren, of course, goes through desertion, which is a form of psychological abuse. But it's clear that you have been abused as well.
He has a lot of anger. And most of his anger needs to be dealt with in a way that you somehow hold on to the fact that had he had a mother like Ren's mom, or had he had someone who looked to him like even Lulu and Wes, who occasionally just give him a look and say, you got a choice here. If you make the wrong one, you got to deal with that. You know what I mean? But we with the show being the vehicle for these characters, you don't see anybody except a motorcycle and this guy, and Betty Blast in a way. She says, Cranston, I tell it like it is, and I'm telling you, hit the road. I don't have time for you. And I love that because she talks to me and not at me. Most of the time I think Chuck is probably, in scenes that aren't in the show, but they need to exist to play the guy, he's probably talked at instead of to, like all those girls. They talk at him. There was a time when they were still writing scenes, and I thought, boy, this scene's different. I'm going to work through it because it's a workshop. You got to explore it all. But I thought, I got to sing a song called "The Girl Gets Around," and it's a rock song, but it's like this guy's anthem in a way. He's got to walk around, strutting around, saying, "She likes me, she likes me, she likes me, and she would probably like to go out with me too," and do it. But if I know that they don't like me, it's awfully hard to exist in his way.